So the story of my experiments with truth, right, by Mahatma Gandhi ji. So here certainly here I have a comprehensive and a great story of Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography, right? So the story of my experiments with truth here, I will start from the introduction, purpose and philosophy here. Mahatma Gandhi, begins his autobiography by, elucidating the purpose behind here, documenting his life experiences. He emphasizes, that the narrative is not a mere recounting of events, but a, reflection of his, continuous quest for truth, that we call Satya. Okay, and the experiments he undertook to live a life aligned with this principle. Gandhi asserts that truth and non-violence, that we call ahimsa, are foundation pillars of his existence, and his life has been a series of experiments to realize and embody these ideals. He acknowledges the challenges and failure encountered along the way, viewing them as integral to this to his spiritual and moral development. Early life and her formative years, right? Born October 2, 1869 in Porbandar, Gujarat, in Porbandar, Gujarat, right? In Porbandar, Gujarat, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was raised in a devout Hindu family. His early life was marked by adherence to religious practices and values instilled by his parents. So Gandhi candidly discusses his youthful transgressions, right, including experimenting with meat eating, smoking, and petty theft, followed by feelings of guilt and confession. These experiences laid the groundwork for his lifelong commitment to self-discipline and moral rectitude. At the age of 13, Gandhi entered into an arranged marriage. Right? Gandhiji actually married in 13 years. He entered into an arranged marriage with Kasturba. Okay. He reflects on the challenges and dynamic of their relationships, acknowledging his initial immaturity and the evolution of their partnership over time. Education in England here in 1888, Gandhiji here traveled to London to study law, aiming to become a barrister. During his time in England, he encountered Western culture and grappled, with maintaining his religious and cultural identity. He adopted a, vegetarian lifestyle. Okay, he now, adopted a vegetarian lifestyle influenced by ethical consideration and her interactions with members of vegetarian society. Gandhi also delves into religious and philosophical texts, okay, including the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, and works by, Tolstoy and Ruskin, which profoundly impacted his worldwide view, right? So here, legal practice and awakening in South Africa. Upon returning to India in 1891. Gandhiji returned to India in 1891, right? Gandhi struggled to establish a successful legal practice, right? In 1893, he accepted a contract, to work in South Africa, a decision that became a turning point in his life. In South Africa, Gandhiji, faced racial discrimination firsthand, notably, being ejected here from a train despite holding a valid first-class ticket. These incidents here galvanized his commitment to social justice and equality. Gandhi began organizing, the Indian community in South Africa to resist discriminatory laws. He developed the concept of satyagraha and non-violence resistance, right? Okay, as a mean of oppose injustice. His efforts included establishing the Natal Indian Congress and leading campaigns against oppressive legislation. Okay, so development of satyagraha and communal living. Here Gandhiji's philosophy of satyagraha evolved through various campaigns in South Africa, including oppositions to the Asiatic Resistance Act and the Transvaal Immigration Restrictions Act, right? He emphasizes the power of non-violent protect and civil disobedience, discouraging individuals to suffer willingly for the sake of truth and justice. To support these efforts, Gandhiji here established communal settlements such as the Phoenix settlement and Tolstoy farm. This community were founded on principles of self-sufficiency, equality and simple living, serving as a training grounds of satyagrahis, that we call prisoners of satyagraha, right? Return to India and national leadership, right? So Gandhi returned in India in 1915, right? Bringing with him the experiences and the philosophies honed in South Africa. he immersed himself in understanding the socio-political landscape of India, traveling extensively and engaging with various communities. Gandhiji's approach to leadership emphasized grassroots here involvement, self-resilience and reliance, reliance, right? Okay, and here non-violent resistance. He led several significant movements, including the Champaran Satyagraha, as we know, the Champaran Satyagraha in 1917, to address the grievance of Indo farmers. The Kheda Satyagraha in 1918 for tax relief during famine, and here the Ahmedabad mill strike 1918, advocating for workers' right. So this campaign certified his roles as a national leader and demonstrated the efficacy of non-violence protest, right? Non-cooperation movement and challenges. In response to the Rowlatt Act and the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, Gandhiji here launched the non-cooperation movement in 1920, right? As we know, the Jallianwala Bagh and the Rowlatt Act happened in 1919, right? So urging here India to boycott British institution and goods, right? So the movement aimed to attain Swaraj, self-rule here, through peaceful means here. Despite initial successes, the movements here, faced challenges including outbreaks of violence, right? Most notably, the Chori Chora Kand, that we call the Chori Chora incident in 1922. As we know, the Chori Chora Kand, that we call the incident in 1922, where protesters here clashed with police. Okay, resulting in here fatalities disturbed by the violence here. Gandhiji called off the movement, emphasizing that non-violence was paramount, right? So imprisonment here and continued advocacy. Gandhiji was arrested in 1922 and sentenced to 6 years in prison, right, for sedition. Okay, so during his here incarceration, right, he focused on self-improvement, spinning cotton and writing. He was released in 1924 due to health issues, right? So upon release, Gandhi continued to advocate for social reformation, right, for social reforms including the eradication of untouchability, promotions of khadi here, hand spun cloth, and communal harmony between Hindu and Muslim. So reflection and conclusion here, in conclusion, his autobiography, Gandhi reflects on his ongoing journal towards your truth and self-realization. He acknowledges his imperfection and the continuous nature of experiments with truth. So Gandhiji here reiterates that the pursuit of truth requires humility, self-discipline, and unwavering commitment to non-violence, right? He views his life as an open book, inviting others to learn from his experiences and embark on their own quest for truth and moral integrity. So this summary here encapsulated the essence of the story of my experiments with truth, highlighting Gandhiji's unwavering dedication to truth, non-violence, and social justice. So his life serves as a testament to the power of individual conviction and the impact of ethical leadership, right? So here the next point is the central message of the story of my experiments with truth, right? Okay, so here Mahatma Gandhiji's autobiography, the story of my experiments with truth, is not just a chronological accounts of his life events. It is a profound spiritual and moral journey that offers here readers an in-depth insight into the evolution of one of history's most influential leaders. At its height, the book communicates a deeply personal and universally here resonate message, right? So that the pursuit of truth that we call satya, through non-violence, ahimsa, his highest calling of human life. So Gandhiji does not present himself as a saint or prophet, right, but as a ordinary man who continuously experimented with truth in every sphere of life, right? So personal, social, political, and spiritual, the message he conveys is rooted in the belief that truth is God, right? And to live truthfully, is to live in harmony and harmony with divine will, right? Okay, so here, through tireless self-discipline, introspection, and action, Gandhi attempts to demonstrate that even the most complex social and political problems can be addressed through moral courage, ethical conduct, and non-violence resistance, right? So here, the pursuit of truth as a lifelong experiment. Okay, so the foundation message of the autobiography is that life itself is a continuous experiment in search for truth, right? So Gandhiji uses the word experiment deliberately. He approaches his moral decisions and her actions not as a perfect conclusion but a test of conscience and principles, right? conscious and principle. Okay, he writes here, what I want to achieve, what I have been striving and pinning to achieve these 30 years, his self-realizations, to see God face to face, to attend moksha, right? For Gandhi, truth is not just, intellectual or here abstract. It is a lived, experience, right? It is a lived experience realized here through rigorous honesty, humility, and reflections in day-to-day life. He does not claim here infallibility. Instead he embraces, his errors as a necessary for learning and spiritual process through detailed, anecdotes, right, including his early here indulgence, cultural dilemmas in England, right, and moral conflicts in family life. Gandhi illustrates that the trust must be tested through self-life application, and the failure is a part of the path to realization, right? So non-violence, right, we call ahimsa as the mean to truth. So if truth is the ultimate goal, then non-violence is the means to reach it. Gandhi's understanding to ahimsa goes far beyond the mere absence of physical violence. It encompasses love, compassion, self-control, and forgiveness. In his own word, ahimsa is the highest ideal, right? It is meant for the brave, never for the cowardly. Okay, Gandhiji is here, experiments here with, ahimsa began the personal, restraint, but they evolve into powerful public resistance during his time in South Africa and later in India. He initiated satyagraha. Okay, so the philosophy and the practice of resisting evil, through peaceful means. His campaigns, whether against racial injustice or colonial exploitation, right, exemplified, his belief that non-violence was not passive but active courage rooted in moral authority. Okay, so the moral, strength he believed could awaken the conscience of the oppression of the oppressor and create conditions for peaceful transformation, right? So here the introduction of religion and spirituality into daily life. So here another core message of Gandhiji's narrative is that here religion is not confined to ritual or sects, but is a living force integrated into everyday life. Throughout the autobiography, Gandhiji is open here to different faiths, different faiths, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Jainism, Buddhism, and draws from each what he wants morally uplifting. So he writes here, the essence of your religion is morality. For him, the scriptures are secondary, to the principle of love, compassion, service, and truth. He finds their inspiration in the Bhagavad Gita, the Sermon on the Mount, the teaching of Tolstoy and Ruskin, and many others. Right, Gandhiji's unique approach to spirituality, right? Spirituality, he inclusive, rational, and action, oriented. He insisted that true religion should promote harmony, service to others, and fearless pursuit of truth, simplicity, self-discipline, and self-reliance. That we call here self-reliance, simplicity, self-discipline, and self-reliance. Gandhiji's here life was marked by an unwavering commitment to simplicity and self-restraint. He practiced vegetarianism, here celibacy, that we call brahmacharya, fasting here, spinning his own clothes, and reducing his material needs. These were not mere acts of austerity, but deeply political and spiritual practices. By simplifying his life, Gandhi sought to purify the mind and body to better serve society. He also linked personal ethics with political empowerment, advocating for Swadeshi, self-reliance, and economic decentralization. The use of here khadi became symbolic of this philosophy, right, representing dignity in labor, independence from here British goods, and here unity among Indians. Thus Gandhiji here message was that personal transformation is the foundation for social and national transformation. He believed one must become the change one wishes to see in the world. Moral education and character building here, in his autobiography, Gandhi here emphasizes the importance of character, over formal education, right? So he was critical of the British educational systems imposed in India, arguing that it alienate students from their culture and real life responsibilities. Instead of here envisions a system, where education was rooted in ethics, vocational training, and self-discipline. Gandhiji advocated for a historical, model of learning, one that included the development of the heart and soul, right, not just the intellect. His emphasizes on inner integrity, honesty, humility, and serve and the services is recurring message in his experiments and reflection. So fearlessness and the power of the individual, right? Gandhiji's journey is testament to the power of one individual to affect profound social change. That his experiments shows that a moral courage and integrity are most powerful than physical force or political status. He challenges the readers to act according to conscious, right? Okay, here conscious, yeah. Even when it entails personal risk or unpopularity. He believed that the true strength lies in the ability to resist injustice without hatred, to speak the truth with love, and serve others without expectation. This philosophy is exemplified in his civil disobedience movements, hunger strikes, and lifelong dedication to uplift the oppressed, service to humanity as the highest revelation. Okay, the autobiography here reiterates Gandhiji's belief that serving humanity is the greatest form of worship. He writes about his involvement with marginalized communities, including untouchables, and his commitment to their upliftment, despite criticisms. So here for Gandhi, the path of truth is incomplete without serving, without the service, and the moral measures of your society is how it, treats its weakest member. Here the conclusion of the point is here, a life as a living example. In essence here, the story of my experiments with truth, is an appeal to every readers, to undertake their own moral and spiritual journey. Gandhiji's message is both simple and profound. Live truthfully regardless of the cost. Practice non-violence in thoughts, words, and actions. Integrate spiritual and moral values into public and private life. Be fearless in the face of injustice. Lead by examples. Gandhiji's life here, as depicted in his autobiography, is a mirror for those who seek to live with integrity, courage, and compassion in a world often clouded by violence, deceit, and division. His message here, endurance, not as a rigid doctrine, but as a living invitations to explore the highest potential and of human conscience and character, right? So here the experiment with celibacy and Manu Gandhi. In December 1946, Gandhi asked Manu Gandhi, his grandniece, to sleep beside him naked as a part of his ongoing experiments, to test his self-control over sexual desire. He believed that complete mastery over lust was essential for his spiritual growth and leadership. Gandhi had taken a vow of celibacy at the age of 38. Over the years, he tested his adherence to this vow by placing himself in situation where sexual temptation might arise, and he could observe his reaction. This particular experiment with Manu, who was about 18 years old at that time, was meant, according to the Gandhiji, to test the strength of his brahmacharya, his vow of celibacy, not out of lust, right, but as a spiritual exercise. He was transparent with his ashram companions, right? Companions, I mean to say. He was transparent with his ashram companions about experiment, and even discussed in its public, believing that honesty and openness were essential components of truth. However, this act has been widely criticized and questioned, both during his time and in modern assessments. Critics argue, that such an experimental, blurred ethical lines, especially due to the age and the power of dynamic involvement. So Gandhiji viewpoint here. Gandhiji here wrote and spoke about the incident with the conviction that here the body is tool for moral and spiritual testing. Overcoming sexual desire completely is necessary to attain perfect self-control. His intentions were purely spiritual, not physical, right? However, he was aware that many would not understand or accept such a method here. He started, I regard myself as a seasoned soldier. I have never made a secret of my experiments. So here's the legacy and the criticisms. So while Gandhiji broadened experiments with food, health, non-violence, and politics, right, were widely praised. This particular experiment with celibacy remains one of the most debated and controversial aspects of his life. It raises complex ethical and psychological, I mean to say, questions about power and autonomy, morality, and spirituality. In modern times, scholars and critics have, reevaluated, such experiments through a moral critics lens, especially concerning well-being and consent of individuals' involvement. Right. So here, the next point is, which is really astonishing and a powerful thing here, the comprehensive professional thing what I actually have, that Mahatma Gandhi's key experiments in life here, spanning personal discipline and social ethics, spirituality and political action. These experiments form the foundation of his philosophy and leadership, right? So the major experiments of Mahatma Gandhi is here, a detailed here thematic account from his autobiography and life, right? Experiment with truth here, Satya, the central principle. The cornerstone of all Gandhi's experiments was his commitment to truth, Satya, that we called. He believed that God is truth, and later evolved that idea to say truth is God, right? Here the practice total honesty in speech, action, and thought, right? Confessed openly in his life autobiography about his faults, stealing, lying, jealousy, lust, to show how truth liberates and purified. Maintained public transparency and even on controversial decisions, right? So Gandhi viewed truth seeking as a lifelong journey, not an achievements. Every moral and political and social decisions he made was tested against his principle, right? Against this principle. So experiment with here non-violence, that we call ahimsa. Okay, Gandhiji's principle of here non-violence was not simply the absence of physical violence, but here active law and respect for all life, right? He believed that truth and non-violence are inseparable, right? Example here, a practice non-violent resistance, that we call satyagraha, against racial laws in South Africa, led massive non-violent civil disobedience campaigns against British rule in India, advocated here vegetarianism, animal welfare, and kindness even towards insects. Gandhi here held the truth, here the true courage lies in resisting evil without hitting the evil door. Okay, he extended non-violence to thoughts, words, and social systems, right? So experiment with celibacy, that we call brahmachari. Celibacy is what? Celibacy is brahmachari. Among the most here intense and controversial of his personal experiments was his vow of celibacy taken in 1906. So the goals here to gain here self-mastery over desires, to redirect sexual energy into service and spiritual pursuits. Okay, to test the power of will and restraint. Methods here: avoided private contact with women for years. Method is what here? Avoided private contact with women for years. Refrained from sexual relations with his wife after taking the vow. Okay, later conducted controversial tests here, such as sleeping beside young women, okay, including Manu Gandhi, to test his detachment. Okay, though Gandhiji here insisted these were spiritual exercises, spiritual exercises. They have been widely criticized for ethical concerns, particularly in modern context regarding consent and powerful dynamic. So experiments with diet and fasting here. Gandhi here conducted lifelong dietary experiments to understand the relationship between food, body, mind, and spirit. So practiced vegetarianism throughout life. Or gave up salt, okay, pulses and milk for periods, right? Ate only fruits, nuts, and uncooked food for years. Eventually returned to goat's milk, calling it a moral defeat but a necessary one. So fasting here use fasting both as penance and form of moral protest. Here fast became here a tool for political pressure and spiritual purifications and self here purification. Gandhiji here viewed the body as a vehicle for truth and discipline. Food to him was not for pleasure and but for service. So here experiments with simplicity and self-reliance, right? So Gandhi believed that the material excess and dependent were obstacles to truth and freedom. So practices here were simple, hand spun khadi clothes, okay, lived in communal ashrams with basic facilities, clean toilets himself to break caste prejudice. Rejected here western suits and here luxury items even in London. He promoted Swadeshi, that we call self-reliance, and manual labor as tools to strengthen and soul here and empower empower the poor. Experiment in education here, right? So Gandhi believed in education must cultivate character, craft and intellect, right? Not just bookish knowledge. Key elements here, introduces basic education rooted in handicrafts, agriculture and moral values, right? Education was to be in mother tongue, combining spiritual and practical learning. Opposed here colonial and elite systems of education that disconnected Indian from their roots. His systems aimed to create independent, ethical and community serving individuals, not merely just job seekers, right? So experiment with here, interfaith harmony. Though a devout Hindu, Gandhi studied and respected all religions deeply. His action is, read the Bible, Quran, Gita, Buddhism and Jain texts. Attendant, interfaith prayer meetings, right? Emphasizes moral core of all religions, rejected blind, rituals and divisions. Gandhi believed that the true, religion promotes here peace, service and self-realization. He often quote here the essence of religion is morality. So here experiment with the political and social reforms that we call the Satyagraha, right? So Gandhiji most significant political experiments were South Africa and India here, where he tested how moral force could transform an unjust system. Okay, key campaigns here: South Africa 1893 to 1914 fought racial discriminations through peaceful resist. Champaran Satyagraha is here 1917, first Satyagraha in India, for indigo farmers' rights. Okay, Salt March is here 1930, a 240-mile march, to defy the salt tax and spark mass civil disobedience. A Quit India movement is 1942, right? A nationwide call to end British rule, right? So these were moral laboratories where Gandhi tested non-violence, truth, discipline and sacrifice on a mass scale. So experiment with upliftment of oppressed, right, Harijan work. So here Gandhi worked tirelessly for the abolitions of untouchability, calling the oppressed caste Harijans, right, children of God. Okay, so opened ashrams to all caste, cleaned latrines to break caste taboos. Okay, so oppose the idea of untouchability and anti-Hindu and anti-human, right? So fought for their social, political and spiritual integration. This was part of his broader experiments to make Indian society more truthful, inclusive and morality just. So experiment with leadership without power, right? Unlikely to have typical political leaders, right? Gandhi refused formal positions of power. Unique approach here, never accepted any official post in government, right? Led by example here, not authority. Okay, so believed in moral authority over political power. Practiced here voluntary poverty and simplicity, even when widely reversed. He redefined leadership as a service, humility and sacrifice, not control or ambitious. So the conclusion of the point is here, Gandhiji's life as a laboratory of truth. Every aspect of Gandhiji's life was an experiment in truth, from family relationships and dietary habits to national movements and spiritual quests. He lived in living publicly, transparently and vulnerably, so others could learn not from his perfection but from his struggle and sincerity. So his legacy lies not in rigid doctrine but in the courage to experiment, the humility to fail and the commitment to rise again in his pursuit of higher moral ideals, right? So yeah.